I've always believed that anything worth saying can be communicated through a drum solo. Words are messy, ambiguous. But rhythm is truth. It's the heartbeat, the pulse, the raw, unfiltered emotion that can't be faked. That's what I tell myself anyway, as I set up my kit on the stage of Berklee College of Music's recital hall, a venue I never expected to find myself in. The place reeks of pretension and polish, all wood paneling and perfect acoustics, a far cry from the dive bars and underground venues where my band, Feral Noise, usually performs. This is going to be a disaster, I mutter to myself, adjusting my snare drum. Only if you continue to approach it with that attitude, Mr. Breed. The voice startles me. I look up to find Diane Weber, the festival director, standing at the edge of the stage with her arms crossed. Behind her stands a slim Asian man in a tailored black button-down and slacks, his expression unreadable. Ms. Weber, I acknowledge with forced politeness. Just getting a feel for the space. Good. May I introduce Eli Chen, your partner for the collaboration? And there it is, the reason for my foul mood. 2 weeks ago, my band's guitarist broke his wrist in a skateboarding accident, forcing us to pull out of the Boston Fusion Festival. Rather than lose our slot completely, Weber suggested I participate in the Classical Meets Contemporary showcase instead, partnering with one of their featured soloists. My bandmates thought it was hilarious. I thought it was punishment. Alex Reed, I say, wiping my hand on my jeans before offering it. Eli Chen steps forward and takes it. His grip is stronger than I expect, his hands surprisingly callous for a classical musician. I'm familiar with your work, he says, his voice measured and precise. Your band's most recent album had some interesting polyrhythmic elements. I raise an eyebrow. A classical pianist who listens to indie rock? That's unexpected. Thanks, I reply, unsure if it was actually a compliment. I haven't heard you play. That's not surprising. A hint of amusement crosses his face. Unless you frequent piano concertos or symphony halls. Not exactly my scene. Weber claps her hands together. Well, you have 2 weeks to create something spectacular together. The festival committee is particularly excited about this pairing, the wild child of Boston's underground rock scene and our most promising classical virtuoso. She smiles, oblivious to the tension. I'll leave you two to get acquainted. As she walks away, Eli approaches my drum kit with curious eyes. May I? He gestures toward my cymbals. I nod, and he runs his finger gently along the edge of my ride cymbal, creating a soft, sustained shimmer. Zildjian Constantinople. Excellent choice. He looks at me with newfound interest. You didn't go for the typical heavy rock setup. I like complexity in my sound, I admit. Even in chaos, there should be nuance. Something shifts in his expression. Perhaps this won't be the disaster you predicted after all, Mr. Reed. Alex, I correct him. And let's not get ahead of ourselves. You haven't heard me play yet. His lips curve into a subtle smile. Nor you me. Shall we remedy that? Before I can respond, he walks to the grand piano at center stage, sits down, and places his hands on the keys. He pauses for just a moment, then launches into something ferocious and technical that makes my jaw drop. His fingers fly across the keys with impossible speed, yet every note is crystal clear. There's passion in his playing that contradicts his composed exterior, a fire barely contained by classical form. I recognize the piece vaguely, something by Liszt, I think, but what strikes me isn't the composition, but the way he plays it. There's a physicality to his performance, his body swaying slightly, his face transformed by complete absorption in the music. When he finishes, hands suspended above the keys for a moment before relaxing, I realize I've been holding my breath. Your turn, he says simply, turning on the bench to face me. I've performed in front of thousands, but suddenly I feel exposed. Vulnerable. I adjust my throne, grip my sticks, and close my eyes for a moment. Then I play, not the technical showcase I'd planned, but something more honest. A rhythm that builds slowly, revealing layers of complexity, moments of unexpected gentleness amidst the power. When I finish, the silence in the hall seems to vibrate with echoes. Eli's expression is thoughtful. You play with more sensitivity than your recording suggests. I'm not sure if I've been complimented or criticized. Music sounds different in a studio. Things get lost. He nods. Indeed they do. He returns to the piano. Let's try something together. Something simple to start. Do you know any jazz standards? A few. Take 5. His fingers find the opening notes immediately, and I join in, keeping time but adding subtle variations. We're feeling each other out, musically speaking. Testing boundaries. When we finish, there's a strange energy in the room, a recognition that despite our different musical languages, there might be a conversation possible between us. Same time tomorrow? He asks, already gathering his sheet music. Yeah? I'll bring some ideas. He pauses. As will I. Though perhaps we should discuss what we're aiming for with this collaboration. I thought that was obvious. Culture clash. Classical rigidity meets rock rebellion. That's what they want, right? His eyes narrow slightly. Is that what you want? The question catches me off guard. I want to make something interesting. Something true. A hint of approval crosses his face. Then we're in agreement, at least on that point. He extends his hand again. Until tomorrow, Alex. As I watch him leave, I realize I'm genuinely curious about what tomorrow will bring. Intrigued, despite myself, by the contradiction of Eli Chen, the precision of his speech versus the emotion of his playing, the perfect posture that somehow doesn't prevent him from throwing his whole body into the music when it matters. I finish packing up my gear, unaware that I've just experienced the first tremors of what will become an earthquake in my carefully constructed life. Our rehearsals quickly establish a pattern. We meet in the late afternoons when the recital hall is available. We begin formally, professionally, exchanging musical ideas and trying different approaches. But as evening deepens, something shifts. We loosen up. The music becomes more experimental, more personal. By the end of the first week, we've abandoned the sheet music entirely. Eli improvises around classical themes while I build rhythmic structures that both support and challenge his playing. We're creating something that isn't quite classical, isn't quite rock, something that exists in the uncharted territory between our two worlds. Try this, Eli suggests one night, playing a haunting sequence that sounds vaguely like Chopin but with modern harmonies. Follow the emotion, not just the time signature. I adjust my approach, letting the drums breathe more, creating space for his notes to resonate. When he reaches the climax of the phrase, I build with him, then pull back precisely when he does, as if we'd rehearsed it 100 times. We look at each other in surprise when we finish. Something just clicked. I think we found our direction, he says quietly. Yeah, I agree. That felt right. We worked for hours that night, building on that moment of synchronicity, forgetting the time until the janitor reminds us that the building is closing. As we pack up our instruments, I realize I haven't thought about my band or our upcoming record deal negotiations all evening. My world has narrowed to this room, this piano, this collaboration, and increasingly to Eli himself. I find myself watching him when he's lost in the music, the way his expression transforms, becoming more open, more vulnerable, the way he pushes his hair back when it falls into his eyes during a particularly intense passage, the slight smile that appears when we find a perfect musical connection. Same time tomorrow? He asks, our new ritual. Actually, I hear myself saying, I'm starving. Want to grab something to eat? There's a good Thai place around the corner. He looks surprised, then pleased. I like that. Over tom yum soup and pad thai, our conversation drifts from music theory to personal history. I learned that Eli was a child prodigy who rebelled against his strict parents by secretly listening to rock and jazz albums. That he once turned down a prestigious opportunity in Vienna because he wanted to explore more contemporary directions. That beneath his composed exterior lies an artist as restless and questioning as I am. My father still believes I'm going through a phase, he says with a wry smile. He expects me to eventually settle down with a nice symphony position and a suitable wife. The statement hangs in the air, loaded with implications I'm not sure I'm reading correctly. And what do you want? I ask. He considers the question seriously. To make music that matters. To connect. His eyes meet mine. To be honest in my art, if nowhere else. Something about the way he says it makes my heart beat faster. I find myself telling him things I rarely share about growing up with a father who drank too much and a mother who left when I was 10. About finding salvation in a second-hand drum kit. About the terror and exhilaration of building a life around something as precarious as music. Your playing makes sense now, he says as we walk back toward the parking garage. The controlled chaos. The moments of unexpected tenderness. What about yours? I ask. Where does that fire come from when you play lists like you're tearing your heart out? He stops walking, his expression suddenly guarded. Perhaps from the same place as your rhythms. From everything we can't say any other way. We stand there on the sidewalk, the night air cool against my skin, something unspoken crackling between us. For a wild moment, I consider reaching for him, touching his face, pulling him closer, testing whether this connection extends beyond music. Instead, I shove my hands in my pockets. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, he echoes, and I can't tell if I'm imagining the regret in his voice. The second week brings a new intensity to our rehearsals. The piece we're creating has taken shape, a 15-minute journey that begins with classical restraint, gradually incorporating rock elements until it explodes into something entirely new before returning to a transformed version of the original theme. But as our music becomes more cohesive, my emotional state grows more chaotic. I can't stop thinking about Eli, not just his playing, but the man himself. The way he laughs, rare, but genuine. His thoughtful silences. The dedication that drives him to repeat passages until they're perfect, not from fear of failure but from respect for the music. We're working late again, refining a particularly complex section when my phone buzzes with a text. It's from Jake, our band manager. Great news. Label wants to sign. 3-album deal, tour support. Meeting Friday to finalize. This is it, man. I should be ecstatic. This is what we've been working toward for years. Validation, security, the chance to take our music to a larger audience. Instead, I feel a strange hollowness, as if I'm being pulled away from something essential just as I've discovered it. Good news? Eli asks, noticing my expression. Yeah, I say, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice. My band's about to sign a major deal. Tours, albums, the works. Congratulations. His smile seems genuine, if reserved. When would that begin? Soon. There's a tour already lined up, supporting vernal equinox across Europe. We'd leave right after the festival. I see. He returns to the piano, adjusts his sheet music unnecessarily. I received some news as well. The Shanghai Conservatory has offered me a visiting professorship. Very prestigious. That's... wow. China! That's far. I try to sound supportive, but something in my chest tightens. Would you take it? It would be foolish not to consider it. His fingers gloss over the keys without pressing them. Opportunities like this don't come along often. We're both quiet, the implications settling around us. In a matter of weeks, we'll be on opposite sides of the world, this brief intersection of our musical lives nothing more than a memory. We should get back to work, I say finally. We've only got a few more days until the performance. He nods, but there's a new distance between us, a carefulness that wasn't there before. We play mechanically for the rest of the session, technically perfect but emotionally hollow. As I'm packing up my gear, Eli stops at the door. Alex, he says, his voice soft. The piece we've created, it matters. Whatever comes next. I look up, meeting his gaze across the room. Yeah, I agree. It does. He seems about to say something more, then changes his mind. Good night. After he leaves, I sit alone at my drums for a long time, playing softly, trying to translate the ache in my chest into rhythm. For the first time, I'm not sure the drums are enough. The night before the festival, we arrange one final rehearsal to run through the entire piece. Eli seems subdued when he arrives, his usual precision present in his playing but absent from his demeanor. "Everything okay?" I ask during a break. "Just focus," he replies, not quite meeting my eyes. We run through the piece twice. It's flawless, every transition smooth, every dynamic shift perfectly executed. And yet, something is missing, that spark of connection that made our earlier session so exhilarating. "I think we're ready," Eli says, closing the piano lid. "Technically, sure." I twirl a drumstick between my fingers, frustrated. But it's not right. Something's off. "Perhaps we're overthinking it." He gathers his things with mechanical efficiency. "The audience won't know the difference." "I'll know. You'll know." I stand up, agitated. "What happened to making music that matters? To being honest in your art?" He stiffens. "Don't use my words against me." "Then stop hiding behind that perfect classical facade." The sharpness in my voice surprises us both. "You play like your heart is breaking, then talk like you're at a board meeting." "Which is the real you, Eli?" "I could ask you the same question," he counters, finally showing emotion. "The rebellious drummer with the sensitive soul. The artist on the verge of commercial success who seems ambivalent about it. Who are you really, Alex?" We stare at each other, the tension between us thick enough to touch. I don't know anymore, I admit, the fight draining out of me. But when we play together, when it's right, I feel like I'm closer to finding out. Something shifts in his expression. He takes a step toward me, then stops. "It's getting late. We should both rest before tomorrow's performance." "Yeah." I run a hand through my hair. "Look, whatever's going on, let's just leave it outside when we play tomorrow, okay? For the music's sake." "For the music," he agrees quietly. "Good night, Alex." He leaves, and I'm left with the hollow feeling that we've just rehearsed our final goodbye, as well as our piece. The day of the festival arrives with perfect early summer weather. The Boston Common has been transformed with multiple stages, vendor booths, and thousands of music lovers wandering between performances. Our showcase is scheduled for the main stage at sunset, prime time. I spend the day in a state of distracted anticipation, barely registering my bandmates' excitement about the record deal or the other performances happening around us. My thoughts keep returning to Eli, to our unfinished conversation, to the way music has bridged the gap between us even as words have failed. Backstage, the energy is chaotic: technicians checking equipment, performers warming up, festival staff rushing about with clipboards and headsets. Eli is already there when I arrive, looking impeccable in a black suit that's been modernized with subtle rock elements, silver buttons, a slightly edgier cut. The sight of him makes my heart stutter. "You look good," I say, immediately regretting the admission. "As do you." His eyes take in my own concession to the occasion, black jeans and a charcoal button-down instead of my usual t-shirt. "Are you ready?" "As I'll ever be." I flex my hands, feeling the familiar pre-performance tension. "You?" He nods, but there's a tightness around his eyes that belies his calm exterior. Weber approaches, clipboard in hand. "You're on in 5. The crowd is fantastic. We've got critics from every major music publication out there." She smiles brightly. "No pressure." As she hurries away, Eli and I exchange glances that communicate more than words could equal, parts amusement at her obliviousness and acknowledgement of the stakes. "Alex," he says suddenly, urgently. "Whatever happens out there?" 2 minutes, gentlemen," a stagehand interrupts. Eli closes his mouth, the moment lost. "We should take our positions." We walk onto the stage to enthusiastic applause, the setting sun casting a golden glow over the crowd. I settle behind my drum kit while Eli takes his place at the grand piano that's been positioned to face me, allowing us to see each other throughout the performance. The noise of the audience fades as I focus on Eli's hands hovering over the keys. He looks at me, a question in his eyes. I give a slight nod. He begins to play. The opening is all Eli, delicate, precise, classically beautiful. I watch him, waiting for my entrance, mesmerized by the way he moves with the music. When I join in, it's with gentle brushwork, adding texture rather than rhythm at first. Gradually, I incorporate more elements, a steady beat emerges, grows more complex. Eli responds, his classical phrases taking on a subtle swing. We build together, the music growing more intense, the fusion of our styles becoming more complete. I can feel the audience's engagement, the initial curiosity giving way to genuine appreciation as they realize this isn't a gimmick, but something authentic. And then, just as we reach the most complex section of the piece, disaster strikes. A surge causes the sound system to momentarily fail, Eli's piano suddenly inaudible through the monitors. I can still hear him acoustically, but barely, and I can tell from his expression that he can't hear me at all. In a traditional classical performance, this would be catastrophic. But we're not traditional. Without missing a beat, I increase my volume, using the natural acoustics of my drums to cut through. Eli, recognizing what I'm doing, adapts instantly, modifying the dynamics of his playing to match. We lock eyes across the stage, and something electric passes between us. The technical issue becomes irrelevant as we focus entirely on each other, on the visual cues, on the pure communication of music stripped of technological mediation. We're playing not for the audience now, but for each other. Every note a confession, every rhythm a response. When the sound system comes back online a minute later, we barely notice. We've found a new level of connection, more intimate and honest than anything we've achieved in rehearsal. The piece transforms in real time, becoming more emotional, more raw. I see tears in Eli's eyes as he plays the final passage, a simple, haunting melody that I accompany with nothing but the softest brushes on the cymbals letting his notes shine. As the final sound fades, there's a moment of complete silence. Then the audience erupts, not just applause, but cheers, whistles, a standing ovation that seems to shake the stage. But I barely register it. I'm looking at Eli, and he's looking at me, and in that moment, everything is perfectly clear. I stand from my drum throne, driven by an impulse I can't ignore. Eli rises from the piano bench at the same moment, as if pulled by the same force. We meet at center stage, oblivious to the thousands of eyes upon us. That was, he begins. I know, I interrupt. Eli, words fail me, as they always do when it matters most. So I do the only thing that makes sense. I step forward, take his face in my hands, and kiss him. For one terrifying second, he's still against me. Then his arms come around my waist, pulling me closer, his lips responding with an intensity that matches the music we've just created together. The audience's reaction fades to white noise as everything narrows to this moment, this connection, finally acknowledged. When we break apart, the applause has transformed into something more, hoots, hollers, supportive shouts. Someone in the front row yells, "About time." We both laugh, suddenly shy despite the public declaration. I'm not taking that professorship, Eli says, his voice low enough that only I can hear it over the crowd. And I'm renegotiating my tour schedule, I respond, not letting go of him. There are planes, after all, and internet, and breaks between tour legs. He smiles, a full, unguarded expression I've only glimpsed before when he was lost in music. It won't be easy. Nothing worth playing ever is. I feel lighter than I have in years, certain in a way I've rarely experienced. But I think we've got the rhythm right, don't you? In answer, he kisses me again, briefly but with promise. Weber appears at the edge of the stage, gesturing frantically for us to take a bow. We do, hands clasped between us, the audience's approval washing over us in waves. Later there will be questions to answer, arrangements to make, complications to navigate. But in this moment, as the last light of day gilds the scene in gold, I know with absolute certainty that we've composed something that won't end with the final note. Every note he plays still breaks my heart, but not from longing anymore, from recognition of how perfectly his music complements mine, how completely our separate melodies have become a single song. And I no longer need to hide my love in the drumbeat. Now it's there for everyone to hear. in every sound we make together.